What's up guys, I'm Mr. Audio, and if you're new to the channel, welcome. So in this video, I'm going to show you 5 different ways to get the perfect low end, and that involves the kick and the bass. Number 1, sample selection. You're going to want to choose the right sounds. You're going to want to make sure your kick is either lower than the bass or higher than the bass. The fundamental of the kick has to be either lower or higher. You have to make that decision early on in the production phase. Now, once you've done that, phase shouldn't really be a problem unless we're talking about headroom, which I'll get into later on in this video. There's a special trick that I'm going to show you at the very end that's going to basically create the most headroom possible. Now, there's another trick too that I'm going to mention before that, but we'll get into that. So choosing the right sample is always key, but you don't always have to choose the right sample. As a mix engineer, I get a lot of samples where I don't have the liberty to choose the kick or the bass. They like those sounds. So maybe I can tune the kick and still keep its character and make it more beefy. In the production I'm working on this week, I actually tuned the kick quite a bit lower than it was, almost an octave lower, I think like 7 semitones maybe, just where it felt right with the bass. Then I made sure with the spectrum analyzer or an EQ that the kick and the bass are hitting at different points in the frequency spectrum, just so they're not overlapping with each other, creating more problems. Now, what happens if you overlap your kick and the bass and the fundamentals? Well, you might get a muddy sound. One might not be too clear to hear, or they might both be way too clear to hear and eat up all your headroom. And now that brings me to number 2. You can sidechain your kick to your bass. Everybody knows this. This is an easy one. But did you know that you can also just sidechain the low end? And that's secret number 3, all right? Sidechaining the low end of the bass to the kick is probably going to get your best results with sidechaining, unless you want that pumping feeling like they have in a lot of electronic tracks. So let me show you what that actually looks like real quick here. So in this production, I've got these two sounds. There's this kick and there's this bass right here. As you can see, they're hitting at the same time. As you can see, these two cancel out right here, as well as a bit right here. And then it also cancels out right here, right here. This isn't going to produce a good sound. Let's check it and see. We can resample from right here and record it on this part right here, and you'll see the waveform. Notice how it got incredibly weaker. Look at that. That doesn't look like a good sound. Not powerful at all. But if we take and we sidechain the low end, just the low end, so as you can see, I've got neutron here, and it's also dynamic EQ, so I can use it for the purpose I'm using it for. I put it on the 808, so we can duck the bass part of the 808 away from the kick. Now, 100 hertz is a good way to start. I just bring it down like 2 or 3 decibels, just to see what happens. Probably about 3. And then I make it dynamic, and I hit sidechain external, because we want it to follow the kick, right? So now watch this, right? It sounds a bit more powerful, doesn't it? Let's record it and see what the waveform looks like now. And it looks more like the kick is dominant in that point, which is what we're going for. Now, as you can see, the only cancellations that are really happening are like here and maybe around here and there. There's not much cancellations happening now. You can really let the kick and the bass breathe in their own space using this method. And I use this method quite often on a lot of tracks. Now, this method might eat up a bit more headroom, because when I raise the clip gain of this, you can see they're a little bit less consistent because the notes of the 808 could be different. And it looks like they are due to the waveforms. And remember, I know I say this on a lot of videos, but the slower the cycles happen in the waveform, the lower the note. The faster the cycles happen, the higher pitched the note. As you can see here, that this note is a bit higher pitched than this one because the cycles happen a bit faster. What I would recommend doing if you're going to go this method is resampling the entire bass and kick track and using like a loop that you create out of this resampling technique with ducking the bass out of the way of the kick. Now you can even use this method with like a loop too. Like let's say you had a hi-hat and a snare in with the kick in that drum loop. What I would do is I would double that track that the loop is on. Let's do this now. I'll show you. We'll pretend that there's a kick, snare, and hi-hat in this kick right here. I'm going to double it, right? I'm going to hit the mute button. And then all I'm going to do is grab an EQ. Doesn't matter which one. And we're just going to section out the very lowest end, all right, where the kick is. So as you can see that fundamental there, it doesn't sound like hardly anything. And so then you can sidechain this to that because it's only reading the kick. So then boom, let's see what that looks like. Is you can resample again, and now you're just reading the kick. That looks like it might not have got exactly what we needed. So we can, instead of resampling, we can just read that group that I just made just now. So to be sure, I do like to put them in a group and it looks like it didn't change. Now, as you can see, these sounds aren't very powerful together. I might choose to do a little bit of work on the bass, do a little bit of work on the kick. But this is just to show you the concept. Now, there's some other pro secrets. Remember, we're on number 3. There's 2 more that I'm going to explain. And one kind of goes into the other. There's a thing called ring mod sidechain, and that's number 4. So I guess it's been around for a little while. It basically allows you to cut the waveform of the kick out of the bass so that it doesn't eat up any headroom at all. Now, I have found this to sound not the greatest in my opinion. So I opt for a little bit different options. Now, I say ring mod sidechain is the lazy man's way of doing this. Now, this is number 5 right here, and this is called manually editing the kick and the bass. And this will get you the absolute best results, period. I will list the free plugin that you can use for ring mod sidechaining, and Melda has a group of free plugins, but apparently they don't work in Ableton 12 beta right now, or in Ableton 12. They work in Ableton 11, so I could test out stuff like that, and I'm sure I'll do that in a video, a separate video, ring mod sidechain with Melda plugins and ring mod sidechain with this plugin that I'm going to list. Let me just find it here. I know where it is. It's by Denpo RMSC, ring mod sidechain. It's just a simple plugin that you can mess with. You can download it. It's pretty cool. I'll put the link in the description so you can download it and check it out for yourself. I'll also put a link to Melda plugins so you can download that bundle and check it out for yourself, as the attack of the kick is very important. So I like to manually cut out the beginning of 808s and the bass notes and kind of fade into them while the kick is fading out. And let me show you. So it kind of looks like this when you're done, but the results are just absolutely fantastic. All right. So let me show you what can happen. So this is what it looks like normally. All right. We're just going to record and resample and see what happens. It doesn't look like it's a very strong note. We can turn this up, and notice we eat a lot of headroom up right here. It's because the kick and the bass are hitting at the same time and telling the speaker to both move forward. That's what this positive cycle is. So instead of eating up all that headroom, what I like to do is I like to trim the bass note and fade into it while the bass is kind of trailing out. So let's see what that sounds like and looks like in the waveform. Much more consistent. You see that? Now, if I pull this back a little bit, it might not work as good. And notice I'm getting a little bit of a peak there, getting more headroom eaten up. Now watch. And the further I go towards the attack of the kick, the more headroom it's going to eat up. And as you can see that. Now watch when I raise the clip gain on this. That's absolutely crazy. We don't want that. Now let's try resampling again from here. Now this looks like a much more even consistent. There's a little bit of cancellation here when the kick and the bass kind of fade into each other, but it's nothing to worry about. Most everything is here that needs to be here. Now you can turn this up to your heart's content and it won't eat up the headroom that you think it's going to eat up. Now let's just play this one sound. Look at how much more powerful that was. That is absolutely the best way to do this. Now, when you use method number 5, you get the best results. And you want to know what it looks like when you have a whole production done like that. So if you use method number 5, it may seem like it takes a while, but that's why I recommend working on like a loop in a section and then copy and pasting that loop so you get the best results the fastest way possible. Let me show you what that looks like. Now let's see what that looks like resampled. This is just the kick and the bass, remember. And see, right here, there's an extra kick where I might take this kick, separate it out, and sidechain this to that signal so that it ducks this out of the way, the bass part out of the way. Because if you just cut it out in the middle of a bass note, it's not going to feel right. Anyway, that's just my experience, and this is what I do to mitigate any headroom problems. The bass sounds full, the kick is present. Now, because I don't have the mix, I'm not going to show you like everything in the mix because it's not even close to done, and I don't have the artist's permission, but I can show you this. Anyway, This is how I get the perfect low end. I use this method and sometimes method number 3 where I sidechain just the low end of the bass to the kick. Unless I'm making like an EDM track where I really want that pumping sound, then I'll do like excessive sidechaining, if you know what I mean. I'll set the ratio to infinite and make it like a limiter and sidechain it to the kick and you know, a kind of aggressive sidechain. Anyway, that's the video, guys. I hope you like it. Thanks for watching. Links are in the description. I'll see you in the next one. Mr. Audio, out.